Technology transfer. This is a strategy that many companies use to move their innovations into the marketplace in different ways, not necessarily to customers, but to other companies and other organizations. So we're going to take a look at the ways in which technology transfer can be a strategy. So let's define it first. It's the process by which existing knowledge, intellectual assets, facilities, or capabilities are used to fulfill public sector or private sector needs. And basically, these are things that the company prepares and produces and puts out there in the marketplace that are different than the hard products that a company might sell to a customer or a user. So what's the role of intellectual capital in strategy? Well, since organizations are really composed of a couple of different things, intellectual capital, structural capital, and then intellectual capital is another aspect that is really composed of a number of other pieces. And as human capital, it's the talent that's in a company. It's the intellectual assets. It's what those people bring to the expertise that they bring. And then what we call intellectual property, what is produced that has intellectual value. And usually that's patentable value. And so we'll look at each one of these aspects of intellectual capital. So human capital assets are things that are fairly obvious. You can see them. It's employee experience, employee know-how. People know how to do certain tasks, certain jobs, certain aspects of production. Employee skills, things that they do well. Sometimes even a salesperson can have a sales skill. Or some machinist can have the skill to run a certain kind of machine. Employee creativity is another human capital asset. And employee motivation certainly is an asset. And we look at all these human capital assets as part of the corporate culture that really goes into making innovation work in an organization. So let's look at intellectual capital assets. Those are the hard aspects of the things that are produced by the company. Documents, drawings, programs, computer programs, data and research, things that are produced as a result of research and development activities. Process identifications, things that have been refined and developed and improved. They're really assets. A company that has a process that really works very well, that is captured within its own four walls, really has an asset, a well-run, functioning process. And then finally, inventions, which are very clearly the creations of things that can lead to innovations. And so we think about all these things that are created that have value. And so they are things that have what we call value creation. And that is where we generate knowledge and innovations that can be converted into commercial value. And so ways in which that can happen is through training, customer and market knowledge, lessons learned on the job, where let's say a process can be improved by lessons learned and even benchmarked by other companies. And finally, corporate knowledge bases. These are all elements of value that are created within the organization that really are worthy and useful for creating innovations. So we have value creation on the one hand, and now we have value extraction on the other hand. And so where we have value, you look for ways in which you can capture that value and then use it in some way in the marketplace. And so value extraction is where you have methods or strategies for converting that valuable knowledge and innovations into commercial value in the marketplace. And so a couple of ways in which you can extract value are through intellectual property protection and technology transfer mechanisms. And we're going to look at both of those. So managing innovation value really takes on three different aspects. You manage the intellectual property per se, where you generate intellectual property and you capture it. Usually that's a short-term return. Sometimes you license it out to other companies and to possibly even other competitors. But it is value, and it creates value, and it has a return for you. intellectual asset management, where you focus on the broader intellectual assets, both protected and unprotected assets. And so some of these things are in categories where you already have them protected, and in other cases you have really intellectual assets that are you need to manage even though they're not protected. And so that's all under the same category. And then finally, intellectual capital management, where you try and harness what we call the hidden value of an innovation that isn't something that necessarily is being paid for in the marketplace by a user or a customer, but that still has value, and you're looking for ways in which you can make use of that value. So that's all part of what we call managing innovation value. So let's look at intellectual property protection. Fairly straightforward. This is a legal look at intellectual property. You've all heard about patents. These are things that the Patent and Trademark Office registers, and you are protected for a certain period of time, not only in the United States, but you can get patents that apply elsewhere in a global context. Copyrights. Usually copyrights are for intellectual property that is written. Trademarks are things that people trademark and companies trademark their logos. Trade secrets are where you have a formula. The Coca-Cola formula is protected by a trade secret. Trade dress is another form of intellectual property protection where you protect the packaging approach that you have. So these are the different forms of intellectual property protection. And so if you have an innovative idea, you have to figure out where it is going to fit in this pattern of protection. So if we look at what is the criteria for a patent, which is the most common way in which you protect an innovation, and it has to pass three basic tests. And those three tests are novelty, where it has to be new and unique and novel, and that's in the judgment of the patent examiner. It has to have some utility. It has to have some purpose, and it has to be necessary to be a commercial success. And then a third category is, the third test is that it's not obvious. It must not be obvious to any person with ordinary skill in the field. And so it has to be novel and unique enough and sophisticated enough to be worthy of a patent. So here are some patent categories. You can patent a process, some way in which material is treated, or let's say gasoline is treated, or oil is treated, or plastic is treated, or steel is treated. Those are all processes that can be patented. You can patent a machine. This is a device that would, let's say, produce some manufacturing effect that accomplishes a certain result that you want. Manufacturing is another patent category where you have really the patent on an article or a product, and this is the most common one, where patents are made for certain types of products that are out there that are unique and not obvious. And then the final category is things that are not patentable. And the laws and the courts have really found that things that are related to the laws of nature, things that are related to business methods, things that are theories or idea or results, are not really patentable. And there have been a number of court cases that have tested these things. And so those are the categories in which you might think about ways in which you could patent and protect the innovative value that is created in a company. So now that we've got intellectual property protected, we now have the ability to transfer that intellectual property, or to transfer that what we call technology. And here are some options for how that can happen. You can sell it. You can sell it to another company. You can put it up for sale, and you can sell it to many, many sources. Or you can simply license it. You can hold on to the protected technology and say, we'll only choose who it is we want to license this to, and we'll control that. Or you can take that technology or that innovative technology and you can say, we're going to create a separate venture that is going to be developed for exclusive use of making that innovation successful in the marketplace. That's kind of what we would call a spin-off venture. And we've looked at this in other slide presentations where we looked at internal corporate ventures. That's one of the options that can happen. Another option, a technology transfer option, is to merge, is to say, well, we've got this main technology and we might be a one-note company. You know, this is the only technology that we've got, and maybe what we want to do is merge with a company that has more capability to do more with that technology than we do. And so we might take a minority position in that merger, but that would move the opportunity for making that technology applicable in the marketplace forward, where otherwise, if we were on our own, we might not be able to do that. To do an alliance or a joint venture, very similar to a merger, except that you have more control and more balance in terms of the power of that relationship. You can create a manufacturer or supplier agreement where you provide that technology as part of what you are providing to other people who need that technology, and where it's a commodity that you're offering to them. Or finally, you can have an open innovation agreement, some quid pro quo for what you provide and what you get with some other company. The open innovation agreement would be very similar to what I would consider to be an alliance or a joint venture. So these are your technology transfer options. And so now what we want to do is look at the pathway for how technology can be transferred and ultimately get into the marketplace. If you start on the left-hand side of this chart, you see where there is a discovery and a recognition that there is value in a form of technology. And then you do what we would call an invention disclosure. This is the first step in the patent process. And you get what's called a provisional patent. And then at the point at which you got a provisional patent, then you want to look at how you're going to manage the portfolio of all these provisional patents. You may recall that we've looked at portfolio management as a strategy for innovation. You have all these innovations and you have to put them and compose them and organize them and strategically collect them in ways in which they are fit into a portfolio and into a pattern in which they either reinforce one another or they have potential. And so that's the place at which you would begin to build your patent portfolio. And then next, you'd go on to look at the technical feasibility of how this patent might work. And then you do some market feasibility. And along with that, you'd evaluate all the assets that you've got in your technology portfolios and say, how could we bring these together in some concept, some product concept, some service concept, some process concept? How could we bring this together so that it might be feasible and interesting to users in the marketplace? And once you've established whether you've got market feasibility or not, then you'd make a decision about whether you want to commercialize that technology in some way. Then you're at the point where you have options. Some of the same options we looked at in the previous slide, where you have technology transfer options. And you then decide whether you want to license it, whether you want to spin it off, whether you want to allow it to be acquired. And then once you've made that decision, then it's launched into the marketplace. So technology, has a very, I wouldn't say complex path, but it has a very step-by-step process by which companies make decisions about whether a technology can move forward and find its way into the marketplace, and whether it finds its way into the marketplace by way of let's say, an innovative marketable product, or whether it finds its way into the marketplace as a form of technology that other people can use to create marketable products. Those two options are available. So, in summary, for technology transfer strategies, really you have to think about technology transfer as a strategy option for any innovation that has value, because almost every innovation has some technology aspect to it. And even though you may have created a technology based innovation that is marketed in the marketplace, it still has a technology component that has value. And if you want to find ways to leverage that value, you look for ways to use some form of technology transfer strategy. And technology transfer can be part of any open innovation strategy, where you have a relationship with another company where you're trading and sharing innovative ideas to mutual benefit. Technology transfer can be part of that strategy as well. And finally, technology transfer opens up many options to capture the value of an innovation. If you have a conscious realization that technology has value, no matter what form it's in, technology transfer strategies are very much a part of any business strategy.